When selecting a new software or a new system for your business, it's absolutely critical to understand the nuances of each system. I'm Cheatham with Third Stage Consulting Group. We're a completely independent and technology agnostic advisory firm that helps our clients achieve that third stage of digital transformation. And the reason that we're doing this video today is because of our technology agnostic and independent standpoint in the marketplace, we're able to offer completely pure software reviews so that you can utilize them to understand what's the best fit for your organization. Today we're going to unpack two systems in particular, Infor and Epicor, that are in the top 5 recommended digital transformation or ERP systems that we utilize for our clients. Epicor and Infor are often in the same shortlist or talked about in the same industry, and it's important to understand the key nuances and differences of these two systems when it comes to evaluating the best choice for your business. So the first review we're going to look at today is actually of Epicor, and it's done by our CEO and founder, Kimberling. He's going to go through a complete review of this system, pros, cons, considerations to take into account when you're actually looking at evaluating Epicor. Now, Epicor is actually new on our top 10 ERP systems for 2024 list. And it's important to understand how they got into not only the top 10, but the top 5, the changes they've gone through from a functional and leadership perspective to understand what that really looks like as far as a future relationship with Epicor. So that said, let's go ahead and let Eric take us through an independent and technology agnostic review.
The beauty of being in the manufacturing and distribution space is that you have a lot of options to choose from when it comes to ERP technologies. You have your tier 1 options like your SAPs and Oracles of the world, but you also have a lot of tier 2 options that are highly focused on manufacturing and distribution. And Epicor Kinetic is one of those systems that fits that latter category of focusing on manufacturing and distribution. So what I want to do today is provide an independent review of the pros and cons of leveraging Epicor Kinetic for your manufacturing and distribution organization. And Epicor Kinetic is the new name for the Epicor ERP product suite. You may have been familiar in the past with Epicor 9 or Epicor 10, or just the Epicor name in general, but Kinetic is the new name of their flagship product that focuses on the manufacturing and distribution space. And just as a bit of background, I grew up in the manufacturing space, and early in my career I was doing a lot of work with mid-sized manufacturing organizations. So Epicor is a product that I've been very familiar with over the last 10 to 15 years. And the product and the company itself has gone through a lot of evolutions and ups and downs and sort of ebbs and flows over time, just like a lot of ERP vendors out there. And so what I want to talk about today is where is Epicor today and how does Kinetic fit into your potential ERP roadmap? The first thing to recognize about Epicor Kinetic is that it is a product that focuses very heavily on manufacturing and distribution, especially if you're any sort of make-to-order or complex manufacturer of complex products. So when you think about what your needs are as a manufacturing and distribution company, you've got things like MRP or material resource planning. You need to know that the ERP system that you're deploying can handle MRP well. You also want to know that demand planning is included within that, bills of materials and routing and all those things that tie together your manufacturing and distribution operations. And the good thing with Epicor Kinetic, and probably its biggest strength, is that it does those things. It handles manufacturing very well. And like I said before, in particular, if you're a complex make-to-order or an engineer-to-order manufacturer, this tends to be where Epicor shines. So the reason they're so good at it, or the product is so good at make-to-order and engineer-to-order capabilities, is because it has a strong product configurator. In fact, I remember 10 or 15 years ago when I was first learning about and we first started implementing Epicor for clients, realizing that Epicor has the product configurator in a way that a lot of other ERP systems don't. Even for a lot of manufacturing ERP systems out there, a lot of them don't have that product configuration capabilities. And if you don't know what product configuration is or a product configurator, that is what really ties together everything from your sales and estimation process all the way through the actual manufacturing of those complex make-to-order products. So in other words, when you have a sales rep or a customer service rep that's taking an order or giving a bid to a potential customer, they need to know that they can configure the product that they're selling to their end customers. And you need to know that you can set up those business rules within the system to manage what you can and can't do as far as putting together your materials and subassemblies into your finished product. So that product configurator is probably the biggest strength that Epicor Kinetic provides, and that's an area you really want to hone in on as you're evaluating Epicor against other systems in the marketplace. One of the big dilemmas with ERP systems in general is that there's a trade-off or a decision that needs to be made oftentimes between the big rigid ERP systems out there and those smaller systems that are more flexible almost to a fault, in that it becomes harder to drive any sort of standardization because the systems are almost too flexible. So one of the emerging trends in the ERP space in general is this whole concept of low code or no code customization or configuration. And really what that means is that you're changing and personalizing and almost customizing the technology, but you're not messing with the source code, and you're not running that risk of potentially breaking the technology in the way it was meant to be built. And Epicor is becoming somewhat of a pioneer in that whole low code or no code concept and mindset, which can really provide a way to get the best of both worlds. On one hand, you have standard processes and workflows that allow you to scale, but on the other hand, you have these low code and no code capabilities to be able to tweak or modify the software without necessarily having to change the source code and create a bunch of problems with upgrades and maintenance and just general usability going forward. So if that's something that's appealing to you, then Epicor Kinetic can be a great product for you going forward. So in addition to the product itself, one of the considerations for any sort of ERP evaluation is what kind of implementation partner options do you have out there in the marketplace? So when you're evaluating Epicor or any other ERP system, you want to understand who are the value-added resellers or those implementation partners or system integrators that can support the product and help you on the technical implementation of the system. And you want to understand and feel comfortable that there's a good ecosystem of providers out there. Now, I'll be honest, Epicor, I feel like it is somewhat of a mixed bag. Historically, if I go back 10 to 15 years, they had a fairly robust ecosystem, a lot of different implementation partners and VARs out there helping resell and implement the software. But somewhere along the way, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, they went through a number of changes as an organization through private equity ownership and changing ownership over time, to where they became almost exclusively focused on the product itself at the expense of building out the ecosystem and the implementation partnership. So there was a rocky road there for a while where the ecosystem just wasn't very well supported, and Epicor themselves weren't focusing as much on the services or the implementation side as they had in the past. That is changing in recent years, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about vendor viability here in just a moment, so stick around for that. But in general, that's something you want to make sure that you're evaluating not just the technology itself and understanding if that's the right fit for you, but also making sure that you feel comfortable that you're finding a good implementation partner or a technical partner for you. And if you are looking for potential Epicor partners, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to share some of our notes and experiences with working with some of the different VARs out there in the marketplace. Because Epicor is focused so exclusively on manufacturing and distribution, Kinetic can provide a certain amount of cost and value that you're just not going to get with other systems. And the reason for that is because you're not having to buy functionalities and modules that are outside the realm of what you need. For example, if you were to go buy an SAP S/4HANA or an Oracle ERP Cloud or Microsoft Dynamics 365, you're going to be buying a lot of stuff that you may not need because they have a lot of capabilities outside of manufacturing and distribution. So in terms of ROI and the high value areas of your manufacturing operations, we find that Epicor customers do tend to realize a high amount of value relative to other systems in the marketplace. We also find that the implementation cost itself can be a bit lower because you're not dealing with the complexities of all these different modules that don't apply to you as an organization. So when it comes to cost and value, Epicor rates very highly, and we find that that's a positive strength of the product and the company itself. Now, when you're evaluating a big established ERP vendor like an SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, one of the big names in the industry, you don't necessarily worry that much about vendor viability, or most organizations don't. But when you're dealing with a smaller or a second tier ERP vendor like an Epicor, you have to think about how viable is this company, as well as how viable is the product itself. And this is an important consideration for Epicor because 5 or 7 years ago, I would have rated the vendor viability of the company fairly low. In fact, that was something that we had seen declining in the years, probably the early 2010s. We saw that starting to decline and sort of bottomed out a few years ago to where we were concerned about the viability of the product itself and the company itself. Now, there's a few layers of vendor viability. What do I mean by that? What were those concerns that we had? Well, I mentioned before the implementation partners and the ecosystem that's being built to support the product. That was something that was healthy 15 years ago, but 5 or 8 years ago, not so healthy. That's something that's starting to turn the corner, and I think Epicor, with new leadership, is starting to focus more on building out that ecosystem and building more robust options within the marketplace. There's also the financial viability you have to think about. Many years ago, Epicor had a huge amount of debt, had a lot of financial concerns on their balance sheet, and it really made you wonder or question, is this company going to be around for a while, or are they going to be an acquisition target for a big ERP vendor to come in and take over and cut all their customers off the legacy product to switch them over to the new parent company's product? That's not as much of a concern anymore, partly because, again, new leadership that has been installed in the last couple of years really seems to be setting them in the right direction financially to where we don't share those same financial concerns that we may have had a few years ago. And then the final layer that's worth thinking about is the leadership team, as I've mentioned a couple times. And you want to know and understand how strong is that leadership team, what's their vision, and do you feel confident that they're going to take the company and the product itself to where you want to go as an organization in the future. And having gotten to know some of the new leadership within the Epicor organization, I feel comfortable now today because these are a lot of people that I've known through other organizations, other ERP vendors, larger ERP vendors in many cases, that they've acquired or brought onto the leadership team at Epicor. So they have a very strong leadership team, and I could not have said that 5 or 8 years ago. So that does seem to be another consideration with vendor viability. So I'd say overall, vendor viability is on the up and up. It's an increasing, improving area, but it's still something that they're making up lost time for if you look back a few years ago and where they were just not too long ago. Now, so far with the product itself, I've focused on the functional strengths and some of the things to consider that are strong within the capabilities of the technology. But just like any ERP system out there, Epicor Kinetic has its weaknesses as well. And I'd say the biggest one to think about is if you're a manufacturing distribution organization, but you also highly value other parts of your operations like CRM or human capital management or HR, those are 2 examples of areas that Epicor is not as strong as other ERP systems in the marketplace. So the way to think about this is, are you looking for an ERP system that does manufacturing and distribution really well, and then other parts of your operations just okay? Or are you looking for something that's very strong in manufacturing and distribution, as well as very strong in HR and very strong in CRM and very strong in product lifecycle management and some of those other outlying areas of ERP technologies? And if your sole focus or your number one priority is hands down manufacturing operations, then Epicor Kinetic is absolutely a good consideration for you. Now, if you're a larger organization, a diverse organization, you have operations outside of manufacturing and distribution, or if you have a high emphasis or a high priority on human capital management or CRM, you may want to look at other systems out there that also do those things better than Epicor Kinetic.
As Eric mentioned in that video, Epicor is a great choice if you're looking at evaluating a mid-market, manufacturing-heavy type of organization. Epicor is one of those vendors that we've seen a huge transformation of them internally when it comes to leadership and overall strategic roadmap of their product. The reason in which Epicor has moved up on our list or on our list in general is because we see a lot of potential with these changes. Something else positive that they've done that has been a pain point in the past is just their overall implementation network. So a lot of times you can pick a great system for your organization, but you have to rely on your SI, system integrator, or VAR to be able to effectively implement the system. And a lot of times there's not a lot of standardization in that area, which can potentially even lead to project failure. Epicor has put a lot of research and development not only into their product, but also into building out their implementation network. We've seen a lot more very successful Epicor implementation and support because of the investment in expanding and standardizing this network. When we're looking at Epicor historically, there's been a lot of vertical or industry focus. However, they really have moved into expanding into other industries. If you are a business in the mid-marketplace or even a larger business, Epicor is a great product to put on your shortlist for your demos to really evaluate their expansion into other areas that's not just focused on manufacturing. If you have more questions on Epicor, we have a variety of resources on our YouTube channel, and you can search Epicor to see all of the different reviews or team conversations we've had about potentially selecting Epicor. You can also reach out to me directly, and I can attach you to our Epicor specialist at kyler.cheatham@thirdstage-consulting.com. Infor 2 has gone through a variety of changes in the last couple years, specifically with its $2+ billion acquisition by Koch Industries. There was a lot of talk in the marketplace if this would be successful or taint the brand in some way, and looking at really what is the future for Infor. So with that in mind, I want to play you a review from, again, our CEO and founder, Eric Kimberling, around Infor and the considerations if you are looking at shortlisting Infor for your digital transformation project.
Infor Cloud Suite is one of the most popular ERP systems in the marketplace today. In fact, I believe they're the number 4 ERP provider in terms of market share. And it's a system that we see a lot of our clients use. But just like any system in the marketplace, it has its own distinct pros and cons and trade-offs. So what I want to do today is to provide an independent review of this product and talk about the pros and cons and ultimately help you decide if it's the right solution for you. Now, when we're working with our clients, especially in the manufacturing and distribution space, those tend to be the types of organizations that are most likely to gravitate toward Infor Cloud Suite. So companies, for example, that are food and beverage or aerospace and defense or industrial manufacturing, those types of organizations tend to find the most value in the Infor Cloud Suite product. And much of the capability that has been built over the years within the product is designed for these industry verticals. In addition to manufacturing and distribution, we also see a lot of organizations in retail and consumer goods. That's another area, whether it's fashion, apparel, retail, other sorts of consumer goods. Those are all types of organizations that we see a lot of organizations leverage Infor Cloud Suite for, and those tend to be the types of organizations that find a good fit with the Cloud Suite product. One of the strengths of Infor Cloud Suite is its flexibility, especially when you compare the product to other big ERP vendors that are designed to scale for larger organizations. Products such as SAP S/4HANA or Oracle ERP Cloud. Infor Cloud Suite has a lot of flexibility when compared to those and other types of ERP systems in the marketplace. And part of the reason for the flexibility is not just because the products themselves are generally more flexible than some of the other systems in the market, but also because Infor has grown through acquiring other types of systems and other technologies. So for example, Infor acquired Lawson as one example, which was a popular ERP system used by a lot of government and nonprofit types of organizations, among others. And that's just one example of the types of acquisitions they've made. In addition, Infor acquired Bond many years ago, which Bond was one of the pioneers of ERP software and focusing primarily on manufacturing and distribution types of companies. But the whole point in here is that because Infor has acquired all these different companies over the years, it's allowed them to build a pretty broad and diverse set of capabilities that they've now been able to migrate and start migrating into the Cloud Suite solution, which is their flagship solution built for the cloud. So if this sort of flexibility is important to you and you're the type of organization that's changing very quickly, growing very rapidly, Infor Cloud Suite could be a great option for you. Now, one of the downsides of Infor Cloud Suite is the fact that many of our clients and team members have observed that Infor has somewhat of an old school, outdated look and feel when it comes to user interface. So when you compare Infor Cloud Suite to some of the other systems in the marketplace, some of the more recent, more modern ERP cloud solutions, such as say NetSuite or even Microsoft D365, it doesn't have that modern, intuitive look and feel that a lot of user interfaces have with other systems. That doesn't mean the technology doesn't work or that the functional capabilities may not be a great fit for your organization. But when you think about user adoption and how easy it's going to be for people to learn the new system, that can make it a little bit more challenging in terms of just figuring out how to navigate the system and how to take advantage of some of the great benefits and functionalities that the system has. So if user interface is a really important part of your evaluation process, Infor probably isn't going to rate as high as some of the other options on your shortlist, but it's something worth noting as you evaluate Cloud Suite versus other systems in the marketplace. Now, given the size and breadth of Infor as a company, and also the products that they've acquired and developed over the years, there's a lot of broad capabilities that the software provides. And this is one of their biggest strengths, is the fact that they're able to provide a broad set of capabilities that really does rival that of SAP or Oracle or Microsoft D365, some of those bigger ERP systems that are designed for larger, more complex, more diverse organizations. And Cloud Suite does a great job of this. Some specific examples of where Infor Cloud Suite is strong in terms of its functional capability are things like manufacturing and distribution, which I already mentioned. But in addition to that, there's a number of pretty innovative features that the system provides. For example, predictive analytics, especially within the supply chain functionality, is something that Infor Cloud Suite is very good at. So really trying to predict what the supply chain needs are, what the bottlenecks are, and ultimately what sorts of planning needs to be done for the supply chain. That's a unique capability that a lot of other systems don't have. Another example is the whole configure, price, and quote capability. So in other words, organizations that are selling complex make-to-order types of products or even services, being able to take different variables on the sales side and be able to construct an offering for a customer, being able to price it out, being able to provide a quote, and ultimately being able to translate that proposal into an order that can then naturally and organically feed into the manufacturing and distribution processes is something that Infor Cloud Suite is very good at as well. And the whole configure price quote function is something that a lot of systems out there don't do very well. So if you are a manufacturer of make-to-order or engineer-to-order types of products, then this can be a very strong capability for your organization. Another example of strong capability within Infor Cloud Suite is related to retail and apparel and fashion in particular. When you think about apparel and fashion, you're dealing with different colors, different sizes of the same product, which requires a certain amount of complexity in your supply chain because it's not as simple as just keeping track of your inventory and orders related to one SKU or product. You're also having to track the color and size behind that, which can throw a curveball or a monkey wrench into your entire supply chain planning, warehouse, and distribution processes if you don't have that capability. So apparel and fashion, and anything to do with retail for that matter, is something that Infor Cloud Suite is particularly strong at as well. And then finally, one other example is food and beverage. That's another area that Cloud Suite seems to thrive, and Infor as an organization and as a product suite tends to focus on and do very well in. And again, food and beverage is a unique type of industry. There's process-based manufacturing where you're dealing with not necessarily discrete units of measure. You're dealing with volumes, so you're dealing with a number of ounces, or you're converting ounces into specific discrete units of measure. That whole process can get very kludgy and very difficult if you don't have the right capabilities. So this is another area that Infor Cloud Suite tends to thrive. So these are just a few examples of the many strengths that the product has, and these are some of the differentiators that we find when we're helping clients through their evaluation processes of Infor Cloud Suite relative to other products in the market. Now, one of the disadvantages or challenges of working with Infor as an organization and with its product suite is the fact that it has a fairly complex roadmap, and in some ways that roadmap isn't as clear as it could be. And part of the reason for that is because they do have so many different products. They've acquired a bunch of different products over the years, and they have large install bases in a lot of these different products, which is a strength, and that's a good thing. But when it comes to what is the future of Cloud Suite, which Cloud Suite is sort of that flagship product that they're focusing a lot of R&D dollars in, what does that mean in terms of, for example, Infor Sightline or Lawson that we talked about earlier, or Infor M3? These are three very common systems that are still being used by a lot of different customers. And in fact, Infor is still selling those products to customers either as part of an overall Cloud Suite offering or independently of the flagship Cloud Suite solution. So when looking at what direction you want to go or what systems you want to evaluate within the Infor suite, it's really important to recognize and understand what exactly is it that you're being sold and demoed, and what exactly is it that you'd be contracting. Are you buying the most modern system that's available? Are you buying a legacy product that may go away someday? What exactly is that roadmap? And so those are some of the questions that need to be answered. And Infor is slowly starting to do a better job of articulating that roadmap, but it's something that you want to make sure you understand and navigate, because it's usually not as simple as just going out and buying Cloud Suite as of right now. Oftentimes you're buying Cloud Suite along with pieces or capabilities of other systems that have not yet been migrated to the flagship solution. So these are just some things to keep in mind as you evaluate Infor compared to other systems in the market. One of the benefits of working with a product suite like Infor Cloud Suite is that Infor was recently fully acquired by Koch Industries. And Koch Industries had invested in the company several years ago, but in more recent months and years, Koch has completed a full acquisition of Infor. And what this means is now Infor has more money at their disposal, for lack of a better word. There's more money being invested in the company, which is going towards R&D and really furthering the development and the innovation of the product. And this is really important as you think about ERP vendors that are not, say, SAP, Oracle, or Microsoft, the really big guys. When you get down to that next tier, you want to know that you're dealing with a software vendor that has the resources and the R&D dollars to really keep up. So these higher R&D dollars and resources are something to consider as you evaluate Infor relative to other systems in the marketplace. So Infor Cloud Suite, just like any other ERP system you might be evaluating, has its pros and cons, and strengths and weaknesses. So the key is to figure out what the best solution is for you and what your priorities are and whether or not Infor Cloud Suite might be the best fit.
Infor has a little bit of a wider target market than Epicor, although we have seen Epicor move into a lot of new areas of business and support. But Infor oftentimes has been recognized as having wider variety in their system and the ability to meet the unique needs of specific organizations across industry. We've also seen Infor support larger industries in that its cloud is a bit more mature in being able to scale in that way. Although, again, both are involved in that conversation, and it's really going to come down to the what's best for you and your requirements as a business. There are key similarities and differences between these two systems that you want to consider when going through any evaluation process. If you have questions about our top 10 list or want to review this in more detail, I'll pop a QR code up on the screen for our newly released 2024 Digital Enterprise Operation Report. Now, this report is a comprehensive playbook, but it also features our top 10 vendors, not only from a side of who we would pick as far as top 10 vendors from a strategic standpoint, but also the top 10 vendors in which we've implemented for organizations, which include a lot of Epicor and Infor. Having that tactical experience is really going to be critical to understanding what is the best choice for your business. If you have additional questions on software selection, we do have a full comparison playlist on our YouTube channel available with a variety of different systems for you to review. I'm Kyler Cheatham with Third Stage Consulting Group. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you have questions or feedback on this video, please feel free to reach out to me directly at kyler.cheatham@thirdstage-consultinggroup.com, and I'll see you next time. Blown onto our, that's still weird. I'm gonna do that again. Even a loader.